When I pressed play on that voicemail, I realized my own company had been planning my exit. On paper, I was too tired, too old. My hands didn't shake. I printed the proof, walked into that boardroom, and let the truth do the talking. But trust me, that was only the beginning. The ceiling fan hummed above my head, steady as a heartbeat. I sat at the kitchen counter with a mug of chicory coffee, the kind that bites a little but keeps you company. The clock on the stove said 11:57 p.m. Baton Rouge air hung thick, warm enough to make the walls sweat. Nights like this usually meant I'd be praying or patching a leaky pipe, but not tonight. I just wanted silence. One quiet breath before tomorrow's meetings. The house smelled like lemon oil and thyme, my husband's picture watching from the mantel, invoices tucked under a magnet, life folded neat. My fingers brushed the edge of the counter I'd sanded years ago, each groove proof of work I'd done myself. I kept the kitchen light off, old habit, saving power and letting sound travel. The street outside slept, but something in the air told me the night wasn't done talking. Then I heard her voice. Talia Drayton, my daughter-in-law, the woman I'd trained, trusted, even defended when folks whispered she was ambitious in all the wrong ways. Her tone sliced through the quiet, sharp, rehearsed, dripping control. By Christmas, she's gone. My breath caught mid-sip. I didn't move. Another voice, muffled through her speakerphone, answered. We'll package it as stress leave. She won't see it coming. Board optics will love it. I stared at the red digits on the stove. 12:06 a.m. and let each word sink into me like nails through wood. I didn't drop my mug. I didn't storm out. I just listened. Heart steady, memory working. You learn, after burying a husband, how to hold your tongue and count to 10. When footsteps faded, I pressed my palm flat on the counter and whispered, "All right then." I took inventory in my head, deeds, client lists, founder's clause with my maiden signature, every ounce of leverage they'd underestimated. They had optics. I had legacy. Folks like me built this city's north side when banks called it unworthy. I opened my phone, titled a new note Christmas, and typed each phrase I'd heard. Every timestamp. My chest burned, but my mind sharpened. "You don't pull a woman off a ladder she built rung by rung," I murmured. My late husband Marcus used to say, "Write it down, date it, keep it dry." I could almost hear him smiling. By dawn, humidity turned silver against the windows. I dressed plain, canvas tote in hand, planner, pen, brass key. The front gate opened with a groan. But when I tapped my office badge, a red light blinked. Security looked apologetic. HR must have reset it. Miss Gaines. I nodded. "Appreciate you, baby," then stepped aside. I opened the employee app. My profile stayed active, but half the functions were gone. Classic soft offboarding. I looked straight into the lobby camera and smiled. Timestamp proof. Before leaving, I called my son. "Malik, when you're clear, ring me back. Mama's fine." My tone calm, my stomach steel. At home, I brewed new coffee, set out a fresh legal pad, and labeled a folder. Christmas. I told myself 3 rules. Same ones that carried me through hurricanes and boardrooms. Document, don't duel, decide the timing. Folks love microphones. I love notary stamps. I placed the pad beside my mug, touched Marcus's photo, and whispered, "You taught me patience. Watch me use it." Then my phone buzzed. A calendar invite I wasn't meant to see. Retirement announcement, Friday, 4 o'clock p. I smiled. Slow and sure. By Christmas, they said. I penciled Friday at 4 and underlined it twice. The sun broke through the Spanish town blinds like it had questions of its own. I woke early, the air still sticky from the bayou, that kind of Gulf humidity that clings to your bones. I poured coffee, strong and black, and whispered to myself, "Coffee first, then common sense." My notebook from last night lay open beside the sink. I reread every word I'd typed in my Christmas note. Phrases, timestamps, tone. Nothing about it sat like misunderstanding. I wrote 3 new tasks on a yellow pad, audit passwords, freeze accounts, scan calendars. the ordinary habits of extraordinary caution. By mid-morning, I called the building's front desk, keeping my voice honeyed. "Sugar, could you tell me who last accessed the main door after hours?" The receptionist laughed softly. "Miss Jean, you still run tighter security than the bank." She didn't know how right she was. When I hung up, a text blinked through. "Talia, family dinner tonight. Let's talk future plans. 7 p.m. Casual." My chest went cold. Future plans, my foot. I could hear the corporate frosting in her words. I texted back, "Sure thing, I'll bring dessert." No emotion, no suspicion. Just punctuation dressed as grace. I spent the afternoon setting the stage. Charged phone, small notebook, a pen that never bleeds through. I printed the last vendor acknowledgments still signed by me and slipped them into a file marked proof. When the evening came, the smell of roasted chicken filled my son's house. Malik looked tired, guilt shadowing his face. Talia, all smiles and presentation voice. Poured wine before I'd sat down. "Mom, we want you to think about slowing down," she started. I smiled thinly. "Sweetheart, I can hear fine. No need to narrate my sunset." Her laugh faltered. Malik glanced down at his plate. They spoke of health, stress, transition. I took it all in. Quiet but steady. When she finally said, "By Christmas, we could have you on as consultant," I laid my fork down. Titles shift. Ownership doesn't. If we're talking business, bring the papers. The air snapped. Malik tried to smooth things. "Ma, it's not like that." I looked at him. "Then tell me what it is." He couldn't. His shoulders dropped, the same way they used to when he came home with bad grades and half a lie. After dinner, he lingered while I washed dishes. The faucet hissed between us. "Son," I said, "there's a difference between taking care of me and taking me." He muttered something about being worried. I answered softly, "You don't fix worry by signing my name on things." He flinched. "Don't sign anything with my name on it. Promise me that?" He nodded, eyes wet but silent. Later, at home, I sat at my desk and searched the shared family drive. One file blinked up like a bruise. Temporary transfer authorization. My name typed, not signed. The memo note read, "For optics only." I saved it, stamped the date, printed copies. Then I checked the parish deed records. No changes yet. I breathed once. Long and slow. You don't need a crowbar when you got a receipt. I sent the file to Reverend Clyde. Subject line, Master Deed Confirmation. And he called that night. "Loretha," he said, voice thick as gospel. "Your deed's untouched. You hold the founder's claws." Relief cracked my shoulders loose. "Good," I said, "because they're writing fiction, and I'm holding the facts." He chuckled. "Patience wins courtrooms and kitchens." "Amen to that," I replied. I stacked my folders neatly. Christmas. Intervention. Beside the retired legend mug. Then the phone lit up, vibrating across the counter. The screen read, "Bank fraud services." The sound cut through the quiet like a fire bell in December. When the phone rang at 10:31 p.m., I already had my checkbook out. Bank fraud services flashed on the screen. I answered before the second ring. My account number ready. The young man on the line sounded rehearsed, like someone reading from a storm manual. "Mrs. Jean, we noticed an outgoing vendor payment flagged as unusual." My voice stayed even. "Decline it. Freeze every external transfer. Set dual authorization. No funds move unless I sign them myself." I asked for the case ID, spelled it twice, then wrote it across my yellow pad marked Christmas. "Add a verbal password," I said. "Hull 2416. That number belonged to my grandfather's Navy ship, and no algorithm on Earth could guess it." He chuckled nervously. When I hung up, I whispered, "You don't panic. You pivot." By sunrise, I was parked in front of the bank before the doors unlocked. The air smelled like wet pavement and fried beignets from the shop next door. "Morning, baby," I told the teller, and slid my ID under the glass. The branch manager, a tall woman named Darlene, waved me back to her office. I laid out my papers like evidence in a courtroom. "We need a full control profile, signers, ACH templates, and positive pay lists." Darlene frowned as she scrolled. Someone tried to add an authorized contact but didn't finish. I signed a block and wrote owner must be present in capital letters. She printed 2 freeze orders, stamped both. I tucked one into my intervention folder, neat as scripture. Before leaving, I opened a new reserve account in my sole name, slid a cashier's check across the counter, and said, "Let's keep this one quiet." And in the car, I sent calm emails, first to building management subject line, access discrepancy, then to IT. Please confirm my admin scope aligns with founder status. Every timestamp mattered. I screen recorded the app permissions before anyone could edit them again. I copied everything to my Christmas note, including Darlene's signature and today's time. Then I texted Malik. I secured the accounts. We'll talk facts after school drop-off. He replied only, "Okay, Ma." That was fine. Silence tells its own story. Back home, I made coffee and began a different kind of audit. From a kitchen drawer, I pulled a small recorder, the same kind I used when I interviewed tenants years ago. I hid it inside the sugar jar, lid just ajar enough to catch sound. My phone went under the napkin holder on voice memos. Redundancy is wisdom. I tested the faucet, adjusted the clock to the exact minute, and took a photo for proof. "You don't need a cape to catch a thief," I murmured. "Just clean counters and patience." Then I left the back door open slightly so voices could travel. By noon, the air grew heavy again. Footsteps. I stayed by the sink, washing a cup that didn't need washing. Talia's voice floated in from the living room. "The board will go for it. HR package, consulting title. By Christmas." "She's gone," another voice asked. "Malik's in?" Talia answered. "He trusts me." My chest tightened, but my hands stayed steady. I whispered nothing. The recorder heard everything. When she said, "Announcement Friday at 4, I tapped the counter once, sealing the moment in time. After they left, I stopped both recordings, checked playback, and labeled the files. Kitchen _1206 p.m. and backup _1206 p.m. I copied them onto 2 USB drives, printed a log sheet, stapled the photo of the clock. Then I called Reverend Clyde. "We still on for that notary at 7? He said. "Book's in my hand." I smiled. "Good, let's make it official." When dawn came, the sky over Baton Rouge turned soft pink. I brewed coffee, straightened the folders, Christmas intervention, beside my retired legend mug. The doorbell rang exactly at 6:59 a.m. Clyde stood there, suit pressed, notary stamp gleaming in his hand. Clyde showed up at 6:59 sharp, Bible in one hand, notary book in the other. I had the folders laid out across my dining table like a courtroom exhibit. Christmas, intervention, bank freeze case, badge denial log. The notary, a woman named Trina, checked IDs, her eyes widening as she scanned the stack of documents. "You're ready for a hurricane," she murmured. "Baby," I told her. "I don't wait for weather, I build roofs." We notarized every page, the affidavit of recordings, my access denial memo, and the founder control clause Clyde read aloud like scripture. 3 originals, wet signatures, embossed seals, old school protection in a digital storm. 1 envelope went to building management, another to the board chair's assistant, the last sealed for my files. As Clyde packed his briefcase, I said the line that would carry me through the day. "You can fake concern, but you can't fake ink." By mid-morning, I was on the phone with the venue manager for the afternoon ribbon cutting. "Yes, sir," I said. "The Jean Community Block, my project, my name on that sponsor banner." I confirmed my speaker slot and requested the run-of-show sheet. The manager faxed it. An extra line jumped out. Special announcement, 3:58 p.m. Signed by event team, HR. My lips tightened. I sent the notarized notice to the venue immediately. No program changes allowed without my written approval. Then I booked the front row seat near the center aisle. I marked a hand signal with the sound technician. A palm to the heart meant keep my mic live. Before hanging up, I muttered to myself. At my age, you don't hope for respect. You calendar it. At noon, Malik called. His voice was small, cautious. Ma, Talia says today's just optics. Investors like clean transitions. I sighed. Steady and warm. Baby, calm without consent is just control in a nice suit. I asked him to sit beside me at the stage, not with HR. He hesitated, then said softly, Okay, Ma, I told him. If anyone hands you a paper with my name, don't sign. Just text me a picture first. He was quiet, breathing heavy. You're really not retiring? He asked. Son, I said, as long as these hands can sign checks and climb scaffolds, I'm still building. He chuckled, but it didn't reach his throat. I knew then. He wasn't behind this. He was just standing too close to the fire. By 3:45, the block buzzed with music and heat. The crowd shimmered. City officials, pastors, vendors, old neighbors waving fans. My banners fluttered behind the ribbon. At 3:58, the MC smiled too wide. Before we begin, HR has a special announcement celebrating Miss Jean's transition. My name tasted metallic in his mouth. Talia glided forward, voice dripping honey. After decades of service, Loretha Jean will move into a consulting role to focus on her health and family. I rose slowly, nodding once. Sweetheart, I said when the mic reached me, I brought this block back from weeds and plywood. I didn't retire from weeds. The crowd murmured approval. The MC froze, glancing at the venue manager, who lifted a clipboard bearing my sealed notice. He handed me the mic. I smiled and unfolded the notarized paper. Effective immediately, I read. No announcement or alteration regarding my role shall be made without my written consent. The councilwoman stepped closer. Nodding like a judge, I handed her a copy for record. I still hold the pen on this company, I said simply. Applause swelled. Neighbors, contractors, the women from my church clapping like thunder. Talia's lips moved. But the sound tech, seeing my signal, muted her channel. I finished, clear and measured. Some folks confuse caretaker with owner. Today, we fix that. Then I lifted the scissors, cut the ribbon, and the cameras flashed. My hands steady, face calm, the stage mine again. At 4:05, while people still cheered, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Emergency board session tomorrow, 8 o'clock I smiled under my breath. Good, I whispered. Let's have church early. The morning started slow and thick, the kind of Baton Rouge humidity that clings to your neck and tells you a fight's coming. I cracked 2 eggs into the pan, steady hands, low flame, the rhythm of a woman who's been through storms and learned to counter breaths before battle. Clyde arrived early, as always, Bible in one hand, notary seal in the other. He didn't have to speak. His eyes said everything. We spread the folders across my kitchen table. Christmas, intervention, bank freeze, badge denial log. The paper looked small next to the weight it carried. Ink outlasts outrage, he said, sliding my pen across the counter. I smiled. That's why I polish mine. We signed 3 copies, each embossed seal pressing through the morning quiet. I tucked a peppermint in my blazer pocket, sweet for the mouth, steel for the spine, and whispered a prayer over my pen. Not a prayer for mercy, but for precision. By 8, the boardroom smelled of lemon polish and tension. Framed photos of neighborhoods I rebuilt hung on the walls. All those faces that once called me Miss Loretha. Can you help us? I chose the seat at the far end, the founder's corner, not by rank, but by perspective. Talia perched near the chair, laptop glowing like a stage light. Malik entered last, shoulders tense, eyes darting. Sit beside me, I told him softly. Ears open. The chair called the meeting to order, voice wobbling. I laid down 2 sealed envelopes, one containing my audio affidavit, one the control clause, summary. Recorder on, I said, steady as scripture. Loretha Jean present as founder and controlling signatory. The room shifted. Someone coughed. The chair began. We'll start with a personnel update. I raised my hand. Before we do, let's confirm who has the authority to make it. My voice wasn't loud, but it landed like a gavel. Papers rustled. I passed my notices down the line, each page carrying my seal. The secretary read aloud, "All public statements regarding the founder or company require written consent." You could have heard the AC hum. Talia cleared her throat, voice syrupy. "This is about care, about balance. Miss Jean deserves rest. We'd like to offer her a consulting title." I let her talk until she tripped over her own kindness. "Do you have my signature on that?" I asked. Silence. The chair looked confused, like he'd wandered into the wrong church. "You don't," I said gently, "and that means you don't have authority." Clyde's voice came through my speakerphone, smooth as Sunday. "Founder control remains absolute until revoked by signed amendment." The air thickened. I pressed play on my phone. The recording filled the room. Talia's voice. Crisp. "By Christmas, she's gone." No one blinked. I slid photos of my kitchen clock across the table. "No filters, no edits. That's noon. Last Tuesday." Another member pulled out a temporary authorization memo with my name typed and no signature. "Optics don't move money," I said. "Signatures do." When the vote came, it wasn't close. The board unanimously suspended all transition activities and reaffirmed my control. Malik exhaled for the first time that morning. Talia stared holes into the wall. Outside. The hallway echoed with her heels. "You humiliated me," she spat. I faced her fully. "No, sweetheart, you did that when you tried to humiliate me in public." Her face went red. "Investors want youth," she hissed. "Investors want stability," I replied. "You confused one for the other." Malik hovered between us, unsure. "Son," I said, soft but sharp. "Love without boundaries is just fear with lipstick." His shoulders dropped, shame and pride wrestling. I turned to Talia. "Bring me facts and we'll talk. Bring me shadows and I'll light the room." She stormed off, thumbs flying over her phone. Clyde texted, "Expect retaliation. Stay documented." I smiled. "Always." At 2:15, my doorbell rang. A man in khakis and a badge introduced himself. "Adult Protective Services, ma'am. Welfare check." I almost laughed. "Well, come in then. Let's make sure I'm still fit to fry my own eggs." He followed me to the kitchen, notebook ready. I handed him my ID, my notarized control notice, the board's minutes. "I'm Loretha Jean, not confused, not coerced, just aggravated." He chuckled. "You seem capable, ma'am." "Capable enough to catch the person who called you?" I said. He marked his sheet. "Possible false report." Then my phone buzzed. "Fraud alert, $28,400 check to Gulf South Outreach, LLC. "You might want to watch this part." I told him. I called the bank's fraud desk on speaker. "Decline it, block the vendor. Document this call." The agent read back the case number. I jotted it on my yellow pad. The APS worker shook his head, smiling. "You don't need help, Miss Jean. You need a trophy." "Ain't that the truth?" I said. By evening, the house was quiet again. I filed everything, APS report, bank alert, board decision, each page its own defense. At 6:30, a new email appeared in my junk folder. "Congratulations on your new VP role," followed by a dinner invite to the restaurant I built 15 years ago. I laughed out loud, the kind of laugh that shakes off exhaustion and lands in clarity. "She can toast her promotion at my table," I whispered, "but she'll be reading the fine print before dessert." The recruiter's email sat in my junk folder like a snake under a doormat. Subject line: "Congratulations on your incoming VP role. Optics plan complete." It was time-stamped Friday, 4:30 p.m. the same time the board had voted to keep me in control. Attached was a calendar hold for a celebration dinner at the Foundry, the very restaurant my nonprofit helped rebuild after the flood. Their homepage even flashed my sponsorship logo. I printed every page, headers, IP logs, timestamps, and stapled them to the APS report and the positive pay fraud case. Then, I typed a timeline of every move since Friday morning. The ribbon cut ambush, the boardroom fight, the welfare check, the fake vendor, each had its own exhibit number. I slipped the thumb drive labeled kitchen_1206 p.m. Wave into a folder marked receipts, with a duplicate in my purse. my grandmother used to say. If they eat at your table, make sure the bill's got your name on it. Tonight, I'd serve them the check myself. The foundry glowed warm and golden, the kind of light that flatters liars. Brass fixtures. Reclaimed wood I'd paid to restore. I greeted the owner. Hank, he whispered. Didn't know they booked this under HR. Loretha thought it was a charity dinner. I smiled. It will be. I asked for a seat by the nonprofit plaque wall, facing the private dining room. From there, I could see them arrive. Talia, 2 HR allies, and a man from the recruitment firm. Champagne flutes already waiting. Their laughter hit a note too high, too practiced. I watched as Talia lifted her glass. To new leadership, she said. The word retirement floated out of her mouth, light as grease on gumbo. I waved for Hank. He pulled up the booking record. Corporate card, discounted under my founder sponsorship, my dime. I requested the private room across the hall, asked him to roll the sound partition at my signal. The walls in that place carried sound like memory carries pain. I texted Malik, if you're here, stay quiet. Watch, don't explain. When the clinking hit its peak, I stepped through the partition. The room fell still. Forks midair. I smiled like a Sunday teacher catching a classroom whisper. Evening. Everyone, I said. Beautiful night to honor hard work, especially the hands that built this wall. I placed a framed photo on the buffet, me in a hard hat, grinning through dust. We poured this concrete together. I added, I just didn't expect y'all to throw a party about taking credit for it. The owner, bless him, read the clause from the sponsor contract aloud. All public messaging tied to this venue and project must be approved by Loretha Jean. Talia tried to giggle. This is a private dinner. I nodded. And that logo on your menu? That's public. Choose your category. I handed out copies of the recruiter email, the timestamp bolded. You call it vision. I call it forgery with Wi-Fi. The room tensed. One HR woman stared at her glass like it might save her. I reached into my purse and clicked play. Talia's voice filled the air. By Christmas, she's gone. I didn't look at her. I looked at the owner. That was my kitchen. Noon Tuesday. She planned this takeover between conference calls. I laid down my packet. APS incident, positive pay block, board minutes, the notarized notice of reserved powers. You don't have to like that I still work, I said, but you don't get to steal it. Then I slid an envelope across the table, resignation terms, 1 week to transition, no references, no gossip, mutual silence, return of devices. Council's copied, I said. Audit to, and Hank, just so you know, this event's now part of an ongoing investigation. My phone chimed. Read receipts from bank and audit contacts, one after another. I smiled. We cut a ribbon yesterday. Tonight, we cut confusion. Talia's voice cracked. It was just ambition. Loretha, you taught me that. I nodded slowly. Ambition's fine, baby. But calling APS on a 70-year-old woman, that's cowardice with a resume. One of her allies muttered. We should call legal. I lifted my glass of water. Already did. Hank thanked me for handling it quiet-like. I tipped the staff heavy, 50 per head, and took my framed photo back from their buffet. It belonged at the entrance, not behind imposters, outside. Baton Rouge air hung thick but sweet, like rain before justice. At 6:45 the next morning, coffee brewed dark and strong. My inbox pinged. Council confirmed Talia's device return by Monday and the audit meeting set for Tuesday. I laid the peppermint beside my mug, sweet for the mouth, steel for the spine. Then came a knock. Malik stood there, duffel in hand, eyes heavy. Mama, he said quietly, what do I do if she blames you to save herself? I looked at him long, then said, tell the truth and let the rest fall where it may. Malik showed up just after sunrise. Duffel in hand, eyes heavy with the kind of regret that makes a man look younger and older all at once. I set a mug of chicory coffee and a peppermint on the table, sweet for the mouth. Steel for the spine. Sit and breathe first, I told him. He did. The house smelled of ink and lemon oil, same as when I signed my first contract 40 years ago. He asked softly, Mama, what do I do if she blames you to save herself? I looked him straight on. Truth first. Loyalty second, that way you can still sleep at night. My phone buzzed. Board counsel had scheduled audit interviews, and HR's devices were ordered in for imaging. The evidence clock was ticking, and I intended to keep pace. I spoke my plan aloud, partly for Malik, partly for the camera in my head. Church, fellowship hall, co-op. I'm not fighting in the dark. I'm fighting in daylight. By mid-morning, the inbox filled again, forwarded HR templates, the kind that pretend to be neutral. One line read, energy level assessment. Another, legacy tenure risk. Hidden ways to say, too old. A thread from Talia instructed managers to document fatigue moments. Need a consistent narrative by Q4. I didn't rant. I highlighted timestamps and attached them to my binder labeled receipts. 6 names over 55 were affected. Same buzzwords in their evaluations. Pattern beats opinion, I murmured. Clicking save, I dictated a short memo for counsel. Plain bullets. Clean grammar, while Malik sat across from me, learning the quiet kind of power. Reverend. Clyde called back and confirmed 2 elders at church would sign affidavits about similar retirement nudges. Bring the copier, he said. We'll make it formal. I smiled. God's office has good toner. After service, the fellowship hall felt like home. Paper plates, sweet tea, gossip turning into purpose. I didn't preach, I explained. This isn't vengeance, this is paperwork with grace. 2 longtime clients volunteered statements praising our programs and questioning the modern optics push. They signed in blue ink. The church admin notarized right there beside the piano. A retired HR manager outlined steps we could demand. Third-party review, training, and a freeze on biased language. Malik watched as hugs turned into signatures, into leverage. He mouthed, "Wow." It wasn't pride I felt. It was belonging. That afternoon, at the co-op, we set up a small table labeled Relationship Banking Matters. Contractors, grocers, clinic reps stop by to sign pledges. If Loretha Jean is removed, our accounts follow her. A landscaping firm pledged $3 million in contracts. 2 medical clinics added letters. I bundled them as client continuity pledges. No yelling, I told Malik. Just money with manners, by sunset. My email to the board chair carried the index, HR bias samples, client pledges, APS report, and audit request. The reply came within the hour, policy freeze, independent HR review, and Talia placed on administrative leave. I didn't cheer. I filed it. We don't gloat, I said. We document later, on the porch. Malik finally spoke from his gut. I thought helping her meant helping the mission. I turned my chair toward him. Helping that humiliates your mama isn't helping anything. He nodded. Quiet as confession, I gave him a paper defining retaliation laws and a peppermint. Integrity ain't betrayal. Baby, it's the cure. We agreed. No lies, no posts, no spin. Just truth, he asked. Do we make it out okay, I said. With new rules. Yes. By nightfall, the inbox pinged again. Counsel confirming Talia's device return. Recruiter contact under review. Malik typed his audit statement. Slow but steady. You proud? He asked. I said. Proud's not the word. Relieved, maybe? Then came the final text from Talia. You'll regret this. I always land on my feet. I saved it quietly. Another receipt. I placed the binder by the door, peppermint on top, light still burning over that framed photo from the restaurant. Quiet isn't weak, I whispered. It's ready. At 9:30 p.m. My phone lit again, unknown number. Single voicemail. Miss Jean, I think you should hear what HR told me to say about you. At 7:40, I pressed play. The voicemail came through clear, a young manager whispering that HR told them to catalog fatigue incidents about me for a Q4 exit narrative. I sat still, the kind of still that comes before thunder. My pen moved faster than my pulse. I transcribed every word, printed it, and labeled the sheet Exhibit J, voicemail. I attached timestamps, date, and caller ID. Then I hit forward to board counsel. Subject line plain, direct instruction evidence, age-coded pattern confirmation. When counsel replied with, forwarding to insurer and investigator, I slipped the binder into my tote. Peppermint on top. Malik asked if I was scared. No, I said. Fears for folks without proof. By 9:45, the bank's boardroom smelled like citrus polish and tension. I stood with my toad at my feet, my voice steady as if I were reading Sunday scripture. Loretha Jean, founder, 22 years. I handed out my one-page timeline and said, "What you can verify today." Exhibit A through J laid flat before them. Fraud logs, APS record, HR templates, and the voicemail transcript. The investigator asked to hear the recording. 30 seconds later, silence. You could have heard a coin drop on that marble floor. I didn't smirk. I simply said, "Pattern beats opinion." I added the client pledges to the pile. Money follows integrity. Then came the mic drop moment. A single signature authorizing my packet to go to the D&O insurer and State Civil Rights Board. I signed, clicked the pen shut, and said, "That should keep everyone honest." Mid-meeting, counsel's phone rang. The insurer demanded a freeze on HR actions pending investigation. Talia's eyes flicked to me, then down to her folder. The chair cleared his throat. "Effective immediately. HR authority suspended," she muttered. "This is modernization, not discrimination." The investigator leaned forward. "We'll follow the documents." I picked up my water glass, took a calm sip, and nodded. Receipts don't lie. Mullock's shoulders lowered like he'd exhaled a year of shame. I squeezed his hand once, the way my mother did when the verdict finally came down fair. At noon, the co-op was buzzing. I posted an update on our site. Independent audit underway. No shouting, no boycotts, protect elders. Wait for facts. Folks clapped my shoulder and called me Mama Jean. 2 over 50 workers came forward quietly. We filled their witness forms together. "Speak your truth on paper," I told them. "It lasts longer." At 1:42, counsel's email confirmed it. HR director on leave, outside, firm stepping in. I closed my laptop and said to the camera in my head, "We didn't holler, we showed our work." Then I bought a bag of collard greens, because a woman's still got to cook. By late afternoon, the public readout dropped. The board issued an apology. Removal of age-coded terms, reinstatement of my full authority, new HR oversight. At 5:05, Talia's resignation pinged through. "To pursue other opportunities," I whispered. "Good luck finding one without a mirror." Malik read the memo twice, eyes wet. "I'm sorry. Mama," I told him. "Truth doesn't need sorry, just follow through." That evening, porch light on, we made new rules. Weekly dinners, no optics talk, no secrets. He nodded, promise quiet but real. I texted Reverend Clyde. "Packet closed. Now we help the others." His reply came fast. "Proud of you, Miss Loretha." Then a final message from the investigator. Back pay and cleared records for every elder flagged legacy risk. I leaned back, peppermint between my teeth, the city humming low beyond the trees. "Quiet isn't weak," I said to no one in particular. "It's focus. And tonight, it's justice." The night air hummed as my phone lit again. Unknown number. Same hour as before. I almost let it ring out, then paused. A familiar voice whispered, "Miss Jean, there's another file you haven't seen yet." My peppermint slipped from my fingers. Next Sunday, we'll find out what that file holds.